Yay. Lou, welcome to episode 10 of Into the Foxhole.
Double digits.
Yeah.
We made it. Did it.
We're hitting double digits, and this is your boy Ed.
Your boy Craig as always.
Yeah. And after playing through a few games, Craig's finishing up some, choice games about life choices.
Yes.
We would like to have this podcast essentially about moral choices in games, or choices in general in games. How do these affect the games in the future, the games that have done it the best, games that have done it the worst, and is it even feasible to make a modular game that essentially has the entire story done by the choices made through the game?
Absolutely. Very important. Very cool stuff. I'm very excited about this podcast because there's a lot of good games out there, a lot of good choices.
There's a lot of games that we like that sort of do this choice thing right, and there are some that don't do it not so good. So I'd like to start off by actually talking about more recent one that I finished up and that Craig's actually now finished up is Until Dawn. Ooh. So I'd like to talk about the choices that happen in this and how does this matter in this game compared to other titles that have done it.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, Until Dawn, let's just start by saying the game was phenomenal. The game was great. I loved Until Dawn.
Hayden Panettiere.
So, Hayden Panettiere. I mean, the biggest thing when it comes to games with moral choices and things like that, the biggest thing, you need to have some sort of connection with the characters you're playing with. Mm-hmm. And I think the easiest way, I guess I should say, is in a horror setting, and I like the fact that they had the whole play on like 80s horror movies and things like that, where you had the teens in the cabin all by themselves, a whole bunch of sex and partying and drinking going on, and then that's when something goes wrong.
They had a lot of 80s references.
Absolutely.
They actually had a lot of
early 80s references.
A lot of it I felt was like early 90s references, like Wes Craven, like Teen Scream.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Scream. Absolutely. That's how I felt. A lot of it was like Scream.
See, but I like that, I had a very,
And when you gotta say his name, Wes Craven, R.I.P.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh,
Wes Craven,
man.
R.I.P.
So
Wes Craven.
Oh, man. The inventor of pretty much any relevant killer.
Of the good horrors. Even in the early 90s, like late 80s, man, saved horror.
Absolutely. And because of him, we're able to get games like Until Dawn. Like I said, it's very... very Wes Craven-y, I guess is more a better term. You got your slasher, this guy's going around killing kids in a cabin, cut off from society. Very easy way to get you in, We've all been not all of us, but we've all been teenagers at one point, We want to hang out, we want to have a good time, and then, all of a sudden some dude comes and wants to disrupt our party. Shit, something needs to get done. We need to get the hell out. All good things come from there. So it's really easy to get connected. It definitely helped the voice acting work that went into that game. Like, you were able to believe and feel these characters, especially after the whole incidents that happened. If you haven't played this game, not spoiling anything because it literally happens in the first 10 minutes. These kids die.
Jesus Christ, Craig.
These kids die. You're going back to the cabin the next year to, not necessarily, have a reunion. Well, it's kind of a reunion, basically saying, hey, let's honor their memory by throwing a big fucking party again.
Who the fuck does this?
Yeah, it's kind of, when you think about it, it is kind of fucked up. And they kind of acknowledge the fact that it is kind of fucked up. But they do it anyway, and that's when shit hits the fan. And my God, does shit hit the fan.
Poop, feces, hits. A device
Lord.
used to cool you down. So for those of you who are listening who either played Until Dawn or have seen Until Dawn, you already know about it. But those who have not, the player choices that happen in Until Dawn that lend to why we're even talking about a lot of this is that a lot of the choices that they make in the game are hard choices, and they're choices that just happen, and there is no, going back. Saves automatically. There is no save points. There is no press start and save. It just happens, and you just live with it. And that's that's the greatest thing about this game.
And I do love they're logical choices, because again you're running away from this madman or whatever. So literally, when you're running, you have a choice. Should I hide and hope to God he doesn't see me so I can run the other way, or do I just keep bolting it and hope to God that I can outrun this man? These are logical choices that one would go through in these situations, and you have a limited time to think about these things. Like, the action piles up, your mind starts stressing, you have to figure out, split second, shit, what do I do in this panic X situation? And just pray to God that it's the right choice, and that's exactly how it would play out.
While playing the game, the thing that I had to do to myself many times was essentially try to put myself in the character's shoes and say, I'm going to do what I would do myself if put in the exact same situation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think you overplay your character. Absolutely. And you essentially are so out of body to it that you understand you're playing a game. And sometimes you have to really, 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 really let yourself go and say, if I was this person for real, what was I going to do? Because there's many times this is just a game, and you're going to say, I want to see for game reasons what's going to happen.
Right.
I like trying to play this game with an understanding of, if I was there, if I knew these people with the backstory of what they've told me about these people, would my character go to help or save these people? And I would say deception of me. Actually, the time where one of the characters is about to die and you had a choice to try to save them, I actually recall trying to go back and actually help them. But it's like, you think of it the way you would do it yourself. Would you really, stay on something that's about to fall, or would you really jump on a cliff and then, try to help them, after the fact? I tried thinking about it like I would probably do that. I see myself as going to help them, or I see myself as hiding in this situation, or I see myself as running in this situation. So it's like a lot of those times I see what I would have done, and I actually really love that about this title.
What's great is they always give you these options. Like, okay, do I run? Do I hide? Do I save this person? Do I save myself?
Yeah.
The choices are never really spelled out for you. They're spelled out in the sense that yes, you can either do this or this, but you're never truly sure of what the hell is going to happen when you make these choices.
Yeah, they don't really give you this.
No, because I'm not gonna lie. There are points in that game whenever I was given the option to hide or run, 9 times out of 10, I chose to hide. Personally, I always chose to hide. And that doesn't always work.
That's when the rape's going to happen.
Sometimes it does. And literally, there was one point, I'm not going to lie to you, man, I chose to hide at one point, and it made me feel like such an idiot. Because, the guy literally saw me hide, and, he just walked up and was like, there you are.
Craig,
I was like, wow, I just let this guy have me.
You fucked up, Craig. You fucked up big time.
But that's what I love, because sometimes it made sense for me to hide, but other times it didn't. And you have to really think about that. You have to really think about, should I hide in this situation? Or, man, how far behind me is that guy? Should I just keep running? Because I'm going to hide and he's going to see me.
That's exactly what I felt like. There are some scenes where it's like...
Other times I'm like, man, I'm a frail... Sometimes you get the... I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but sometimes you're there's some frail girls in this game. They're not all athletes. So when they got the chance to hide, I'm not gonna outrun this freaking human tank that's coming after me.
You gotta think about how it's with them. It's like, look, if you don't feel characters athletic enough.
Exactly. You do have the jock.
It's like
you do have the jock, and maybe he should be outrunning these things.
It's sort of like that reality show a couple of years ago, that Who Done It show, where it's at the ending they had some game or something where the person had to run through some obstacle course bullshit because people didn't even know they had to do that, and it was unbeknownst to her. And she lost for a reason that was unbeknownst to her. But regardless.
Mad, bro? You mad? You want to talk about it?
Man, don't run. But it's sort of like that. But if you're going to play a game where you're playing people that you clearly know you're not, you sort of have to put yourself in their situation. The way I am, because if anybody who's listening to this who already knows me already knows who I am. But if anybody listening to us who doesn't know me, all right, I'm like 250, all right, I'm like 6 foot. So in my mind, it's like, yes, I know if some dude's coming after me, I'm like, fuck it, I might fuck his shit up. So that's when I have to put myself in her shoes, literally, and say,
Yes.
what would I do if I was a person that did not have no gains and was a small petite girl trying to run and it was snowing as fuck outside? I would have jumped out that window. I would have been out of that bitch because you can't take that man. He's going to beat the shit out of you. So I feel like you sort of have to do that because you can't really go in there with the attitude of what you would do where you are currently.
Absolutely.
You sort of have to play the role as you are. I love this game's choices. Because they're hardened choices. They're choices where it's like, it happens, game saves right away, you fucking live with it, that's it. The fun of it is watching the outcomes play out. You don't get a chance to rewind shit in life.
Exactly.
So it's like, in this game, I didn't want to cheat myself by ever going back or trying to redo a save. I just accepted it and tried to say, even though the results didn't happen the way I wanted them to, that's the way it normally is in real life. Exactly. And like, it's strange to say that, but it's like
one way, man.
It's really weird to say that because I wanted to bring up a title like Life is Strange, but because of the concept of Life is Strange, you can't even really bring that up in this because you have the chance to change those things that happen anyway. So if you're playing a game and you want to get the understanding of we're making these decisions and the things we're making these decisions from will basically give us a specific outcome and story, you sort of have to let that happen though. You cannot always go back or always change it to micromanage to fit the story a specific way, because even though in Life is Strange you have the rewind thing, or in not Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia you have the rewind thing, at the same time it's like you're not necessarily playing it the way it was meant to be played, and you're basically cheating yourself out of the experience of seeing the outcome roll out the way you would normally see it roll out. Though in something like Life is Strange, the concept is the person has the power to rewind time to make these decisions. Technically speaking, every one of these games you could do that with if you just redo your save or just, go back to another save or something like that.
Absolutely.
But you cheat yourself out of what you would have known from the game. So sometimes it's kind of fun to just play it out that way, the way it should have been, like the way you want you to actually experience those things.
Which is also why, the Telltale games, going into the Telltale games, cats. Yeah, that's why the Telltale games are so engaging in that respect too, because again, you got your choices that you make, and that's it. The game saves immediately, and it's just that's it. Deal with it.
Live with life.
Exactly. It's just how it works. And oh man.
That game
Telltale
gave
I
guess the feels.
I guess the best one to talk about is The Walking Dead, right?
God, the feels.
Oh my god. I will say, as far as games with moral choices and like things that, when you have like these huge decisions to make, I think Walking Dead 2, season 2 was probably the best in that regard, mainly because of the main character. I guess this is spoilers. I don't know.
It's a spoiler. I look at it like you need to eat a dick, nigga. Fuck you. If you didn't play Walking Dead 2 already,
if you didn't play season 1 or season 2, well, shame on you.
If you did not play season 1 or season 2, all I need to say is you could pause this podcast for a little bit, some shit. There could be some spoilers for the next 5-6 minutes, bro. There will be some mega spoilers. All right, after this moment in time, it's your own damn.
It's going right now. So. Season 2. What made Season 2 so great is the fact that it succeeded Season 1. So you have this character that you grew up with. You have Clementine, this little girl you find in her backyard, in her treehouse, because she's scared of all the shit that just went down. And all the shit that she's been through. While you're controlling someone else, mind you. You're controlling, I forget his name, black guy.
It was Lee.
Lee, black guy. You're controlling him this whole time, protecting this girl. And then in season 2 now, you become this girl. And you're hardened as fuck. You've seen some shit.
Girl, say some shit, nigga.
But at the same time, what I loved about that game is that they always gave you the option to still be the little girl. Mm-hmm. You had the option like, oh, do I be this badass, 8-year-old, wielding shotguns and, doing secret mission shits? or do I be the timid little 8-year-old girl what I probably should be? You know, it's like it was very interesting. Like, I loved the character of the fact that I can be this shy and be like, oh no, I don't want to take on this mission. I'm scared, and people will be like, I get that shit, all right? I understand. Like, you're supposed to be scared, but we kind of need you at this point. And you're just like, oh no. And you have to go and do this shit anyway, maybe. But like, Clementine as a controllable character, to me, out of all the Telltale games, was the most interesting to control.
Yeah, sure.
As the fact, just because of her age.
Game was the great thing about Until Dawn and The Walking Dead in that regard is that the knowledge of what you know, like, helps tell the story even further. Now, it's very difficult in a film or in a game or much things to convey relationships or long-term relationships. That's something that's really hard to sort of convey. Like, you have to know something about something that tells you about something else. So let's say if we have a friend, I'm not going to name any names. Let's say if we have a friend that might have did something wrong or might have been like out of line. Years later, something might happen to this person in some ironic sense where we feel like, wow, that is bizarre and weird, and some karma came to said person because of the events that we know this person to be like. That's a drama within itself to us.
Yeah.
That's, you couldn't, unless you told the story between us for decades, you couldn't really convey what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
In this game, they do a great job in both games in saying, hey, look, this person used to go out with this person and they're probably just mad about the breakup. This person used to do blah, 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 and they're probably mad about this. They tell you these things off of the bat. So by the time you're playing the game, you already know this. When you play the character, like when you're playing the Asian chick, you know in what respect you're playing her. You're no longer just playing this person named Emily. You're playing the person named Emily who used to date Mike, who's now dating the black guy who now hates the other chick who's dating Mike.
Right.
If you do not know that, it hurts the game.
Absolutely.
You no longer are able to make a decision in this game that makes sense to who Emily is.
Absolutely.
If you took someone and you took them to our lives, who we were, and you said, we're going to puppeteer the shit out of you, and we're going to play Craig's life, we're going to play Edwin's life. When these segments, Edwin's life, Edwin's life, it's that show, it's that show, Edwin's life. But when you go and do something like this, how would you ever convey any of the relationships that you and I had with any other person if they don't know that history? So the decisions made in The Walking Dead and in Until Dawn go with the longevity of the series, of the game, and of what they told you prior to. If you take a game and you just say, well, we don't know who the fuck you are, you're just a random person, we're going to have you make a decision about some other shit, who cares? I like to know that the decision I'm making has something to do with the person that I'm making it with, and that there's a history between it. Like, okay, outside of The Walking Dead, before I make my next point, let's say something like, well, we talked about this way back when, in one of our original podcasts, with Mass Effect, of like, okay, you had a decision in this game.
I figured this is where this was going.
you had a decision in this game where you pick light-skinned black guy, dark-skinned black guy, shit that ain't shit. You either got Keith David as the voice of some other bitch nigga. So, this is what they did. Keith David voice, shit, silky smooth as fuck.
Oh, man.
Smooth like bourbon. Smooth like bourbon. No, but it's like, but
it's hard like scotch.
But this is the only difference that comes from this. Let's say, for instance, any of the people who I'm good friends with who served in the military, good buddy of mine, Angel, another good buddy of mine, Jermaine, another good buddy of mine who served. So if the people who I'm good friends with who serve, they understand that there are people that they work with that they fucking despise or hate or got no respect for or shafted them one time out of something that they deserved. If you were to control him as a character for a couple days, and like the lieutenant came and said, I need you to pick me for this space mission. Bullshit. You're going to pick him from past experience? How could you pick him from past experience if you don't like him? But if we don't know that we don't like him, how do we know the deep meaning of the choice that's being made in here? Drama is something that is built upon like suspense. We need to know these things to understand the gravity of the decision that's being made. If you have something like in The Walking Dead, like with Walking Dead Season 2, you have this character Clementine. Now, her and her group of new settlers are basically walking to where they believe is going to be a safe camp. And through confusion, somebody dies on this bridge. Through just sheer confusion. They believe they're being set up. He might try to attack them. Things happen. He dies. While they're on this bridge, they go past it. They go into this little bunker. They see, he had friends. They see he had food for real. So they see that he wasn't really lying. They go to a cabin only to find out the people they now just befriended know the person they just killed. And they're all thinking, where's Ken? Where's Ken? When's Ken coming back up? He's sure taking a long time. You start looking at pictures and you begin to realize that...
One of those, collars getting kind of tight situations. Like, woo!
Room get hot. Y'all boys open a window in this stuff. Y'all boys crack a window down. Y'all got a humidifier in this bitch, dog. Damn. No,
so good.
This is an amazing scene in this game.
Absolutely. Amazing setup, amazing moment.
It's an amazing setup if you play the game because you understand without words. You understand what's wrong about this scene. They didn't need to tell you what was wrong about this scene. You understand what's wrong.
What I love about that too is that moment drags, man. You are in that situation for a good little bit. You are lying your asses off because if they find out, you're done. You are getting shot in the back of the head, whatever. You are killed in your sleep, and you just have to linger with the editor watching everything you say because you can't give away that you even know who this guy is. What he was about, where he was, what he was doing. You can't say shit. So every little thing that you do after that moment when you find out that those people know him is just tense.
You've already fucked up. You already fucked up. Mind you, and the thing that makes the scene so great is you find out, one of the characters in the first game, Kenny, is alive. He's alive and well, and and now he's vouching for your crew and saying that you guys are good people. And now when you realize who the person you guys killed knows them, you now realize that how could you say that this is who you guys are? You guys killed this dude. And here's the picture of him all over the house. This is something that can't necessarily be told properly in terms of the decisions you will make if you never knew that and if it was not set up that specific way. So it's why I bring up that you have good ways to make decisions, you have bad ways to make decisions. If you have a game like Mass Effect and they're telling you to make decisions on a game that did not properly build any story behind any of these characters, I don't hate Mass Effect, but its story is complete ass. They don't give a fuck about the characters in this first game. There's no backstory between how you know them or how even relationships you really have with these people.
Right.
And so when you were like, oh man, you have to choose Ashley or Kirilenko, I don't even like either of them. I've never even fucking had a long conversation with either of them. So making them die becomes fairly simple and fairly easy. I don't care. So you don't build
this
that.
This one's kind of more attractive.
Exactly.
So.
That's what you did. We're like, we don't like Kirilenko because he's a bitch.
Come on,
and Ashley looks right in the suit.
Exactly. Let's be honest. I want to be... The question I pose to everybody. How many saved Kirilenko?
Thank you.
Who the hell saved
y'all
Kirilenko?
Boys know no one saved him.
And y'all know the only reason you did that was because Ashley was looking right.
Exactly.
And that even brings up the point, even then, okay, cool, you make this decision. Ashley, Kirilenko. Whoever you pick, doesn't matter. As the series goes on, this choice was, in the grand scheme of things, this choice was extremely minuscule. It literally meant nothing. It changed a scene in Mass Effect 2.
Pretty much.
Where, they confront you, say, oh, man, I don't like what you're doing with that Cerberus group. And you're like, well, deal. And then done. You never see them again. It's just whatever. I don't even, I played through all 3 games. I don't even remember if you see them at all in Mass Effect 3. I don't remember. It was that just out of my mind that it just wasn't a big thing. And if it was a thing, it obviously wasn't big enough because I don't fucking remember.
Exactly. I look at it as Telltale's games are not RPGs, and if Mass Effect is not leaning to be that any longer, I mean, at least take the Telltale route in terms of having that, okay, something happens, really make it affect something that goes on in the future of the game. If you're not going to make it really mean something, in my personal opinion, don't even fucking do it.
Yeah.
So, like, these characters that show up, like, okay, all you get is some generic thing of, well, Ashley comes back and like, oh yeah, Ashley's a higher rank now. But who cares? When she came back, I did not even know who it was. She showed up, Greg. We had an entire conversation. She was talking like, oh man, Commander Shepard, I remember back in blah, blah, blah. And until the conversation was almost done, I was like, oh yeah, that's that bitch that I saved on that plane.
On like, that mission that one time.
Oh, you feel me? That's how I feel about those decisions, because if they don't mean anything to the character again, they don't mean anything to me.
Exactly.
You have to properly explain those things away to make them mean something.
I completely agree. There's a lot of things that Mass Effect did wrong in that sense, where like, you know, a lot of choices really, to be honest, like all the choices really didn't mean anything, because at the end of the game you have one of three options. Technically, you have whatever, like I forget the options. I know them as red, blue, and green because I like the hue that goes over the screen at the end of the game when you choose those options. Like I don't remember what they were about, but I remember it's red, blue, and green. And when you choose one of those threes, that's just how the game ends. It doesn't matter what you did beforehand, what you did after. But what I will say that game did right, especially in Mass Effect 2, like, if Mass Effect 2 was just a game in and of itself, it would have been great. It would have been a great series, like, cool, Mass Effect is a great game. But because it has a predecessor and a sequel, it's like, you have to kind of look at it, like, the series wants to be looked at on a whole grand scale. Like, that's how they advertised it, that's how they marketed it, like, this is one giant adventure. And when you look at it as a giant adventure, it's not that good. Mass Effect 2 had a lot of really good characters doing a lot of really cool things, and had a lot of really big moments for those people inside that confined universe of Mass Effect 2. But when you see them do their things in 3, or the fact that they were barely mentioned in 1, it's just like, who kind of cares? Like,
yeah, I mean, they did a pretty bad job, in my opinion, of fleshing out these characters properly. It's like you have to have something much more than a world and presentation. It's like these stories get told by the characters, and it's like you have to be able to have some sort of attachment to these characters in order for them to mean something to you. If I could get an attachment from characters in Until Dawn, and it's a 10-hour game, a game that's double that time should be able to provide me with something, you know, greater than that, especially in a game that was essentially touting itself to be about these choices across 3 games. Another game I'd like to talk about, so we don't want to beat up in Fallout 2, we don't beat up in Mass Effect too much, would be Fallout. Fallout falls somewhat in the same category of some of these choices don't change that much. It's like you have a mission where you go to this place in Fallout 3 called Tenpenny Towers, and when you go there, you have this really, really rich dude that, you know, he wants to essentially destroy the town of Megaton. So you could side with him and have it destroyed, or you could, like, free some of these people that are inside Tenpenny Towers. So I believe I chose to, like, betray him, and I ended up, like, killing him and then, like, freeing the rest of the people there, like, anyway. So it's like you have some choices that change stuff, but they don't change as much as you would think they really change stuff in the game. It's just like, this town, like, you know, still exists, and that's about it. So it's like the only thing you really, if you were to play every side quest that exists in Megaton and choose to destroy it thereafter, you kind of don't really like. You kind of don't need it. You know, I don't really need it. So it's like, if you chose to do that, I mean, you lived. I mean, you got there. I mean, it's not really that big of a loss. That's the craziest it sounds. But that's how it is with that game. So it's like, there are other games that do make the choice thing make more sense into the long run. I would like to talk about the concept of if you had a modular game, 100% deemed by all the features and all the reactions and all the things that you did to make some sort of story from it, that would be interesting, but it's so complex in the understanding of how that would work. If you were to say, okay, we have a city, every character has a home they go to, every character has their own story that they do, and every one of these characters is predestined to do some series of junk in this entire open world. To say, okay, if I stop this guy, then these other things that go on don't ever happen. a lot of times people want to see what Wood had in order to know why these other things are going on.
Absolutely.
Only because it's like, we get there's choices happening, but everybody wants to see that, okay, I killed this person, this bitch is supposed to run for like the Senate or some fucking crazy ass. And he didn't. And they're just going to be like, man, he's running unopposed because of the sudden death of Colonel whatever. What were you going to say?
No, I was basically gonna elaborate on your point. Like, yeah, like, people just want to know, they want to know everything. It's human curiosity to want to know everything that happens in these games. So, like, when you get to that point where, like, yeah, you know, I killed Senator A, who was running against Senator B, and now Senator B is running unopposed, and he takes the city and he runs it into the ground. Now I'm thinking to myself, like, man, what if I chose not to kill Senator A?
Wrong with you, Greg.
And she ran against Senator B and actually won. What would he have done to this whole place? Like, you kind of want to know these things, and that, I think, lies the only flaw in these types of games.
But that's like what we're going back to. It's like, you have to basically be like, I know why I'm playing the title, and the purpose that I'm playing the title is specifically to get something from those actual events happening versus, well, I'm just going to keep taking it back every single fucking time I have to take it back.
Like, it's like those choose your own adventure books that they had like back in the day.
I kept my hand on the page, Greg.
I didn't touch the page, Greg.
I kept my hand on the page, Greg. You saw me. No, I feel like a lot of people who are listening to this are just not of that age. They are not.
They don't know.
They are not about that adventure.
What the hell is a
life.
choose your own adventure book?
Choose your own. They are not about that life. They're like, you chose to kill this bitch. Go to page 53. Bitch dead. No, but it's like I get that people want to know why the things wouldn't happen. I feel that I want to have a game, if it is going to be completely open world, completely modular in design, in terms of these things are just naturally happening due to a person not existing. If you think of a simulation like SimCity or The Sims, if, let's say, in the most basic form I could explain this, you have a city, and let's say this mayor allowed for the specific city to have a certain number of cars or guns or something. There's something that they decided on a statistical level. If this person no longer exists, then there will be more guns, thus these more other things will continue to go on. In that regard, you could kind of not even explain that, but still have the user in some form get that his choice that he made those things happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel the story needs to tell itself through its own medium, to tell itself that this happened, and we don't need to take you outside of it and show you a screen that said this is why it happened.
Right.
To let's properly say, you're going to listen to the news, or let's say if it's an open world game, you're driving and you're listening to the news on the radio, and it talks about a shooting that you just did. And let's say you did the shooting, and it says that, well, this person who had a family or whatever, and the mayor used to do whatever. Now this mayor is using this to get rid of guns or to add more guns because he feels that it would have changed it.
Yeah.
I like to know that while you're playing it in the game, naturally, those things are being told to you versus here's a menu screen where you get a percentage of how many people decided to kill that nigga at the gas station. It's like, I like those in Walking Dead, and I like those in Until Dawn. I like those in games that give you the choice. But at the same time, I want a game that naturally does it in a way where you, seeing through the environment, you're able to see the things you did that manipulated all the other things that eventually ended up happening.
Unfortunately, the amount of data.
That would be. That is like, I've thought about it for a long time. That's a difficult thing to do.
You have to consider, like, someone out there had to predict the actions that you were going to do. Mm-hmm. Because then they would have to then have some dude record the voice saying, "Oh, we need to add more guns because this dude shut up this one convenience store." Like,
it's gonna be so weird because when people play that game, they're gonna be like, "Bro, why does newscaster know everything? Like everything's gonna be reported."
They just have this guy say like a whole bunch of words and like they just make it into a sentence. So like.
It's gonna sound
like at 6:15 p.m. this man robbed convenience store. Hey, like, bro,
they're doing
like completely like all over the place. Tones gonna be like mashed together because this dude's just like recorded this at like years apart.
That's hilarious. They're doing their best, right? Like next one, you're gonna hear.
I mean, it's a cool idea, but like I just wanted to touch real fast on like I think honestly the coolest part about the games with moral choices and things like that is I love hearing my tale of like the things that I went through, and then going ahead and talking to like my friend about what they went through.
That's the fun of it.
Nothing was more fun to me than doing stuff like that. The very first game where I felt that with, because I had a lot of people when this game was coming out that was playing it along with me. That was Heavy Rain.
Chocolate Rain.
Heavy Rain. Like I played that game and I just loved to hear all my friends' experience and how it differed from mine.
It gave you the feels.
It's like knowing the things I did wrong, the things I did right. You know, like the fact that I saved my character from this fate, but doomed them to another later on.
Yeah.
Like I just like all these interesting stories that like kind of come together when you hear different people's versions of it. It's
yeah. I mean, that's
it's easily the best part of these games.
All that is part of the game. And it's like when you have experiences like Until Dawn, like we were talking about it earlier, how some of your characters died and some of my characters didn't. So it's like you may, even though we both had the same intentions of wanting specific characters to live, some of yours did and some of mine didn't based on just certain things that happened. If not even by decisions, just by like simple, like, okay, something wasn't moved the right way. And, like,
oh my god, I had a twitch in my arm. You know, I'm a human being. I like to move.
You were most scared. You was most scared. So it's like, yeah, that's one of the funnest ideas about this. I'd like to before we end it off, I'd like to touch upon something that one of like the biggest like innovators of this even genre had even recently stated. Warren Spector, who is the guy who created System Shock and Deus Ex and lots of other series, he states about games like this, like Walking Dead, how all the decisions are pre-done, and that, you know, you're making the decision, but they were pre-written, and that titles like Uncharted, essentially, you're not experiencing it from your perspective. You're experiencing Nathan Drake's perspective, and that you're not telling your story. You're telling Nathan Drake's story. And I don't know if you got to read up on that, but from what I'm telling you about it, what is your take on it? What do you feel about the idea of somebody saying this and just disregarding genre?
See, well, like the way I see it is that like there's a time and a place for both sides, because let's face it, people still like to watch movies, right? Like, and that's exactly what a movie is. You sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you're watching something from the outside in. You know, you're seeing this whole thing happen in front of your eyes. You know, you get emotionally involved. You gain something from it. And that's the same thing with a game like Uncharted. You know, sure, yeah, I'm also interacting with the game. Of course, I'm playing it, right? But at the same time, we still get engaged, sometimes even more so, because we're actually playing this character with the things that he's doing. So we kind of want him to succeed, and it feels like we're kind of helping him succeed because, you know, we're doing the shooting for him. But at the same time, we want to see him do his own thing. We want to see him be his own person. So it's okay that I'm watching this happen in front of me. But other times, like in games like Until Dawn, it's fun to get involved. It's fun to get involved and make the characters do weird shit. Maybe it's something that they would have never expected. You would have never expected this person to do in the movie. We're like, because we've all been that person too. We've all been that guy sitting down in a horror movie saying, you know, get the fuck out of there. Don't open that door, ho. We've all been that person.
I would not have hid. Things would have been much more successful because your boy wasn't hiding from no one.
So like we've all been that person, but at the same time, like we also do enjoy the ride. We do enjoy seeing these things happen before us in another character's perspective, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, to Warren Spector's credit, like he was, you know, making this statement regarding games that weren't really doing it as much. I don't necessarily like that he picked on Uncharted, based on, I mean, the series itself. The concept of the series is essentially about telling you of someone's story. It's named after the person who's in the game. So it's like, it's about Nathan Drake's story. It's about the decisions and the actions he does. And it's not about yours. Yours is essentially playing the game. It's not making the decisions for him. You're there for the ride, You're not necessarily there to like create a ride.
I mean, let's be honest. If Nathan Drake just started like, you know, he took out his Uzi and started mowing down all these. Well, that's kind of what he does in the game, but like he just started like indiscriminately like killing people because they were bad and they were after his treasure. It kind of to me takes away from who he is and his character.
Yeah, because
so it'd be kind of weird. Like, give the option. Oh, does Nathan Drake kill Lazarevich in this scene, or does he, you know, run away and like try to save Elena? Of course, he would try to save Elena. That's who he is. That's his character. You know, he's the charming hero. We all want to see him save the damsel and, you know, right the wrongs in the end. That's who he is.
And at the end of the day, it's like that is what, you know, Naughty Dog is essentially trying to convey with such a character in the story.
Modern day Indiana Jones.
Yes, it's like that's what they're trying to do with it. And it's like I think it's still good you have genres that are out there that are telling stories. And I think it's good that you have genres that are sort of letting you in some way help create or add or lend to that actual story. Sometimes, you know, clearly we're talking about this podcast, talking about these games that let you make these decisions. Yeah, we like making these decisions in these games, and we like games like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean we don't want to sit down along for the ride and have something that is a story predetermined to unfold in front of us. We still want that. That's still something, in my opinion, that's still needed in gaming. Absolutely. And I don't believe that we can have every game be make your own story, say what's going on. Like, I don't think we can have that in the game industry. So I don't think there's anything wrong with what they did with Uncharted. I personally just think that Warren Spector is trying to add his way of creating games and imposing them on everybody else. Yeah, we know Deus Ex was a big fucking deal for games like that. We understand that all these other titles that he did were huge deals. But it's like, you don't always need to have that in a game, and you don't. It's like, okay,
it's like to me, it's like that's almost like, you know, Ken Levine coming out and saying like, oh man, I hate games like Team Fortress. I don't like delve deep into like the inner psychology of what's going on in the city that they live in, and like the characters' turmoil. It's like, no,
who
like
is
Team Fortress? Like, who is the spy? What is going on with the heavy?
How come that nigga always smiling, but he big?
And see, like that in a game like Team Fortress, that doesn't matter. We don't care about that. It's not necessary. Whereas in a game like BioShock Infinite, that's like the focus. That's what we care about. That's the things we want to see develop.
You're there for the choices.
Exactly. It's like not necessarily supposed to be like that for everything.
Even when you brought up BioShock, which is a great point to bring up. We didn't even cover that. It's like BioShock has choices that you could make in it, but the way I played BioShock when I was done with it a few times was I started to feel that maybe I would have preferred that the character spoke. Maybe I would have preferred that the character himself had a real identity in the actual game, simply because the actions that I do in the actual game could still tell and interweave a story. You're either saving these little sisters or you're harvesting the fuck out of them. That's the real meat of the choice that goes in that game, to the point where it's like, well, you didn't really need this character that was essentially supposed to be you. You still could have had a character that really had a story for why he was really going to where the fuck he was going on a plane that happened to crash. I mean, it's like, I like that you're playing the character in these games and you're just supposed to ignore everything else and you're playing them. But like what Until Dawn's done, Until Dawn has essentially shown that no, you don't fucking need to have it be this blank slate, yet still not be able to tell a story by choice. You could have made a character in BioShock have a real identity and still said, oh my god, I'm harvesting these kids, and oh my god, I chose not to harvest these kids, I'm saving them. You could have still did that without having to make everyone be the player for every single reason.
Okay, I felt like the choice in BioShock was kind of more of a gimmick. It really didn't mean anything.
That was at a time where every game we knew was coming out. They're like, you play a good guy or a bad guy.
Exactly. Every game was like, oh, you either do the good thing or you do the bad thing. And you get the good ending or you get the bad ending. That's all it was. Every freaking game was just like that.
He's the good guy, then the bad guy. That's just like what they did with every game. It was like what you were saying with KOTOR in terms of like beating with different dudes.
And that's what popularized
exactly. It was.
Are you light side or are you dark side?
It was like 2003 or 2004. It's like that game came out, and then all of a sudden it was just like bam, light choices, dark choices. Every fucking game was busting out with light choices, dark choices. Fable was busting out with the bitch.
Oh, God,
all right?
Fable.
Bioshock, like several years later, was busting out with the bitch. Everybody in their damn mama was busting out.
I don't want to talk about Fable.
Yes. So every one of the games is talking about light choice, dark choice. But that's sort of what we're talking about in terms of using it a bad way.
But that's also kind of where like these things evolve from.
Yes,
right?
I mean,
where, like,
it's a good thing that you brought that up. With that being said, because what we don't necessarily like about people saying, "Well, this game has all these different choices," you could have said this about the games prior with the whole light and dark thing. Does it really give you a real choice that's really open-ended, that really lends to something?
Honestly,
or is this just a classic, you bad guy, bad ending, good guy, good ending?
In the older games, when you had the light side, dark side choice, literally all your choices literally just amounted to what ending you were going to get. Were you 51% dark side? Well, you're getting the dark ending. Were you 51% light side? Well, you're going to get the light ending.
Pretty much.
Like, that's all it was.
Pretty much.
And it's the same thing for Bioshock, for KOTOR, even though KOTOR's a fantastic game.
Bruh.
I love.
Y'all boys need to watch out. Y'all need to stay tuned, bitch. We'll do a whole podcast on KOTOR, right?
But yeah, like that's basically what all your choices amount to. Granted, there were really good choices, really interesting choices, and the characters in the game were just so fantastic that it made these choices interesting. But in the grand scheme, yeah, you were basically making these choices to say, hey, do you want to have the light ending or the dark ending?
Like good ending, back in. And with that being said,
yes,
been at episode 10 into the Foxhole, and we all like to say we didn't like that. You know, Mass Effect was like light skin black guy, dark skin black guy.
Listen, all I'm saying is that the new Mass Effect better be on point. It has so many things to go up against now.
Crazy.
There's so many good games with choices now that they have a lot to live up to. That's all I'm saying.
This is your boy Ed.
It's your boy Craig.
And yeah, that's what it is.